All right, welcome to the Party Pals, GRC Mafia. So right out of the gate, we're here to break down barriers, foster collaboration and community, working towards a more secure future for everybody. I did drop the stage link itself in the Discord, but let me see here. I want to go ahead and drop it here as well. The whole goal of this is now video 4 out of 5. So I'll show the HITRUST page here in a moment, but there's 5 videos in this series going over the assessment handbook. And this is just kind of like a review session for us to bring up topics, discuss it a little bit further, ask any questions that other people may be able to answer. Like David B is probably going to pop in. I mean, he's like way in there with HITRUST as well. And then just more of a collaborative kind of environment here. And if you guys would like to, one of the best places to drop your social media or links, resources, things like that is inside of the Discord server. And don't share anything that you don't want to be public. If you happen to do so, reach out to me on Discord, LinkedIn, or contact@studygrc.org. Let me drop this link before I lose track here. You guys do not have to turn on your video if you guys do come up. If you just want to do mic only, that's fine too. And then check out our website for more information. And we have our resources page that's noteworthy as well. And then, of course, you guys are probably familiar with B-Dubs. B-Dubs publishing a cybersecurity GRC related article every single Monday. And then also has the ongoing CISSP study group as well, freely available to anybody. And then PBO also went live, 2 days ago. So every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, PBO goes live on his channel. That's going in the chat as well. PBO and myself were both talking a little bit about the direction of GRC moving forward, especially with AI and some other things with that as well. I was really just trying to add a little bit to the conversation so PBO wasn't up there speaking to himself. Some really great information on that last stream, though. How's everybody's week going? Tonight is the big night for the weekly meeting. There we go. That's so much better. I just turned off my sound dampening on my earbuds here. And then, sorry for those who may prefer dark mode, but here we are. So this is the page for the Assessment Handbook webinar series that we're talking about. We've already gone through the first 3 videos, and now we're on number 4, which is primarily around like the testing, evidence collection. When can you obtain evidence? When should you obtain evidence? How do you go through that? How do you test controls? Different things like that. There's quite a bit of information for this 1-hour video. I kind of feel like they probably could have extended this a lot longer. But there's the webinar series itself, and then you can also, what I've been doing is I listen to the video itself, but then I follow along in the handbook, which is available online as well. I'm going to go ahead and drop this. This is also should be in the description of this video as well. I see 8-bit popping up. KP, welcome to the party. Josh. You guys can collect. I don't know if you guys were trying to collect, drop in GRC Mafia in the live chat. That is tonight. So if you guys would like to grab your weekly badge, that will get reset tonight at 6 p.m. Central Time when our primary meeting starts up. And we have a really awesome talk lined up for tonight as well. Space Tacos is grabbing lunch first, and Rania popped in as well. Welcome to the Party Pals, GRC Mafia. But yeah, did you guys have any particular questions or anything like that in particular related to the testing and evidence? I mean, the video covers it pretty well here. in regards to the fact that it has to, one of the key things that I found interesting is that in order to collect the evidence, it has to be implemented for over 90 days, which I thought was kind of different. But I mean, that also makes sense as well, because you can't be in the middle of an audit and be like, we'll apply a quick patch to this. But I believe it was 11.2 is what this primarily covered. I believe it's at the top up here. So download the assessment handbook and then read the handbook itself. And so I'm going to drop the handbook itself in chat as well. Look at that. Brexy trying to grab the badge too. GRC Mafia. And then let me swap over here. So this is the assessment handbook, which is, you could download the PDF or you can go through and just read it on the website itself. One really awesome thing with this is it's publicly available. You don't even have to enter information for it, unlike some of the other stuff that they got. But you can also go ahead and click on the search and search for things as well. And so let's see here. So pre-assessment, scoping. So I think it was 11.2. Yeah. So testing and evidence requirements. And I don't think I'm going to go through and read through this like I did on the last video here. But one of the big key highlights that I saw is the 90-day requirement section. And then let's see. They break it up really well though. So if you look at that webinar series, each one has a very particular topic, and they pretty much just do a high-level view of all of the different requirements that you would be looking at. But so testing and evidence requirements in Chapter 11, they have a lot of, I guess, nuances to it on the fact that there's a very particular way that you have to go about it. And there's a lot of things that, yeah, see, minimum of 90 days prior to testing. So 11.2.8. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here in case a PBO is watching. 11.2.8. So all controls established by the assessed entity in support of each of the HITRUST requirement statements must be implemented for a minimum of 90 days prior to testing, 90-day incubation period. This includes either a newly implemented control or a 90-day remediated control due to deficiencies. The control must have been operating in its current state for a consecutive 90 days or more before it can be tested as an implemented control. That is, I mean, it makes sense in my head why you would want that. But that definitely adds some different restrictions. That was a key highlight for me. When I heard that, I thought, you know, that's a pretty serious thing there. Oh, look at that PBO popping up. Yeah, I think I might make an entire video about HITRUST versus 53 and why HITRUST is better. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see. I think David B., who's probably listening in or catching up on 4 times speed, would probably say the same. Oh, let me remove this. Bam. Yeah, so that's a pretty good highlight there. They mentioned, I don't know, probably another dozen different nuances related to it. One of the different confusing parts for me, and I think it kind of mentions it here, is there's some, they have their entire timeline requirements, and that's where I get a little bit confused because like it says right here on 11.2.10, policies and procedures within the organization must be implemented for a minimum of 60 days prior to being considered by the external assessor. During the fieldwork period, 60-day incubation period, as the maximum fieldwork length is 90 days. It is possible for the assessed entity to remediate any policy or procedure deficiencies identified by the external assessor within the first 30 days of fieldwork. So for an example, like typically one of the first things you do is you look at the policies and procedures to see what they have listed and how compliant that is. And so it is interesting to note that they do have a 90-day requirement for controls. However, it's a 60-day for policies and procedures. And like it just mentioned there is you could theoretically note those off the bat and then that could change the outcome at the end. So if remediated within the first 30 days of field work, the policies and or procedures may be utilized to support scoring after the 60-day incubation period has been completed, but prior to the end of the 90-day field work. So that's kind of like a workaround as far as the policies and procedures go in. I would assume that would be something you would immediately jump on. If you're looking at the policies and procedures, you submit that to the company and say, hey, this is some of the issues here. Then they got 30 days to figure that out, ideally, so it could be accounted for. Which part is incorrect there, PBO? The fact that HITRUST, overlaps, maps to 71 plus different frameworks and standards and regulations, including originally based off of the 53. Adopting, full compliance with the 53. At least when fully implemented. Let's see here. So that's really what I was going to bring up. You guys are welcome to join the stage, ask questions in the chat or otherwise, and we can go through a little bit more of this as well. I kind of feel like this is definitely going to be the shortest one out of all 5. I've already watched the 5th webinar as well. I'm going to review that again before next week, and then we'll be done with the 5-part series, just reviewing these videos itself. I'm also going to go through, I was thinking something that would be really neat is to go through and do an entire video recapping all 5 videos. So we've already kind of gone through on doing the review process for these streams. After next week for the 5th video, then I'm probably going to publish another video recapping all 5 together in one combined video. Primarily redirecting towards what chapters are involved, some of the different nuances with it, and so forth. So PBO, did you guys have any of that in regards to the 53? You mentioned before that, since the outside of policies and procedures, then, it's really voluntary with the CSF and 53 and so forth. It really comes down to those policies and procedures on what's required. I mean, I don't see anything in the 53 that states that, the field work period and things like that, HITRUST has. I think that's a pretty good idea on these requirements that they got. Yes, the 20-second plus delay is rough. It doesn't help that PBO probably has a 20-second delay too. Oh boy, Josh. Yeah, so the reason why I've been focusing a lot. So 2 of the big things that I've been studying a lot lately is HITRUST and GDPR. And not just that, of course, but 2 primary things. And I've been primarily thrown into HITRUST because of its mapping capability. So one big thing that I would like to state is that you say, if so, it's arguably more secure path since it seems to be more comprehensive, but that is wrong. Compliance does not equal security. And I know you're probably just throwing a question out there and so forth. So I wouldn't go that far, but what I would say is that if you are, one of my big interests with HITRUST is the fact that if you are trying to manage multiple different framework standards, regulations, quite frankly, HITRUST looks very appetizing because it can make your job a lot easier. So if you need to handle HIPAA and GDPR, 53, CSF, whatever, then it's way easier to do that if you follow suit with HITRUST because they have the mappings and so forth. It's not required. You could do that stuff individually and, develop your own framework for it and all of that other stuff too. But then also on top of that, then HITRUST is also going through and doing their QA portion. I believe they stated that it's like nearly 20% or 25% of assessments are actually denied when it goes through the QA. PBO coming up to defend his 53. So yeah, I mean, that's really what draws me, is the fact that they have the QA process and it maps over, and it was originally based off of the 53 and ISO 27K. So it does pull all of that in, and it's supposed to have full mapping to the 53. So yeah, the main point that I see is the fact that especially if you're looking at 6, 7, 8 different things, then it just could make it easier to go through HITRUST. Plus that QA period, I think, is pretty neat. Oh, PBO over here shaking his head no. I think you're muted. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, you got me. I gotta come up here and defend 53. The part you missing is most companies don't respect HITRUST not like that. If you tell me HITRUST is credit, okay, so it's got the mappings. I'm not going to trust those mappings.
Oh, no. I completely get that portion, but that's what I'm saying, is that still it could make it easier to manage the program. You still have to go through and do HIPAA and so forth, right, regardless.
So if I still got to do it, I'm still doubling my work. If it's not accredited for that.
But you're not doubling the amount of work. If anything, you're making it easier, because what you've already done with HITRUST, you can map that over.
I don't trust HITRUST. If my government body don't trust HITRUST, then I got to do it myself. If I go on a map and like, oh, HITRUST had that covered, they're gonna be like, we don't know, we don't recognize HITRUST for that mapping. You do, but if I go to the IRS, they don't respect 800. You got to remember too, 800 is a base framework. When you go to the IRS, they have those requirements of 60, 90 days. When you go to CJIS for the FBI, they have those 60 and 90 days. So you got to remember, it's a base reference. So it goes agency defined. So all the agencies define policies in 30 days, policies in 60 days, policy in 90 days. You got to go to the government agency body that's using 53, and they put their enhancements on top of it.
But also, I'm not rooting for HITRUST to go government. I'm talking private entity. I think that's like a big difference there.
No, it's not, because I work for private companies that do work for the IRS and do work for CJIS. So for me, it's the same thing. If those government agencies don't recognize HITRUST for those mappings, I can't trust it.
I'm not saying that they have to trust the HITRUST. I'm saying if you already go through that assessment, then you can go through and it's easier to map the evidences and everything else. You already have that information, so then you could take that when you're going through your HIPAA or CJIS or whatever the hell.
The problem is each agency has their own nuances, so I got to make sure HITRUST is covering those nuances. Like IRS does a 14-character password, CJIS does a 16-character password. HITRUST is touching none of that.
They have password requirements too.
Yeah, but it's not specific for the agencies. So if it's less or more, I gotta do that mapping to double check that. If I gotta double check it, I might as well just do the other assessment.
PBO, I really think you should go through and watch the webinar series for HITRUST.
I have. There's a lot of things I like about HITRUST, but for me, you can't say it's the government mapping and it's gonna map to all these other organizations when those other organizations don't recognize it. That's all I'm saying.
Just because I'm not saying that it's just like with everything else. You know, I could go off and make my own framework and say, oh, this maps all the way over to this, but that doesn't mean anything. A lot of these different organizations are making their own.
That's what I'm saying. We're saying the same thing.
And that's why I see HITRUST as a really good opportunity there, because it's not just, oh, let's just throw all this together and, you know, run with it. It's third party involved.
No, you're correct. If I have no mappings and requirements, I might pick HITRUST. If I got a specific mapping that I gotta assert to or get certifications for, I'm gonna use that particular mapping. That's all I'm saying. Even if I got multiple mappings, I've done multiple mappings. When I was at the state, we had to do IRS Pub 1075, and my boss, and I was going to interview him, he came from NSA, so he wanted to do the STIGs.
Yeah. Well, and also like in regards to like HIPAA, for an example, there isn't a accreditation or certification. So that's the regulation portion on there.
That's why I hate HIPAA. I think HITRUST was the regulation for actually HIPAA. But now HITRUST is trying to do, which is valid, other things and, become a more general. I'm just saying if I have certain requirements, I'll make sure I double check those certain requirements.
Yeah, which I think you should be doing regardless.
Okay.
What fascinates me with HITRUST is the fact that it can make it easier for you. So like for an example, you go through, you do your HITRUST and everything else. Okay, now we need to handle HIPAA or whatever. Well, let's export that mapping that they provide us. And then that can just expedite the process a little bit. We can use that for reference while we go through SOC 2 or HIPAA or whatever else. Because there's like, it's over 60 different framework standards, regulations that they map with. So
for me, I just feel like I still got to go over all the same things I went through HITRUST through, because I got to make sure it's actually covering the stuff for my IRS Pub 1075 or my sieges. Or if they're just doing basic NIST 800-3, I still have to, maybe if I go through it a couple of times and I can check the box, but for me, that's, I still got to double check it.
Yeah, like their what is it, R3 or whatever the hell it is. It's got like over 450 requirements or something along those lines. So then it would, when you export that mapping to SOC 2 or whatever else, then it's just going to give you that spreadsheet with those related.
Josh, I'll go ahead. My bad. You pause.
Oh no, you're good. The voluntary portion.
Yeah. It's voluntary until you got to report to a certain agency. A lot of agencies sit on top of this. Everybody know I'm an IRS guy. To get data from the IRS, it's not voluntary. You have to do it. I did FBI work for sieges that sits on top of 800. That's not voluntary. Right. So most government agencies, they have their record, because if you look at this, it says organizationally defined. If you report to an organization, it's not voluntary. So that's why I get a little miffed when everybody says, this is not voluntary, man. You got to do work. So that's my only issue. Once again, NASA, I think, sits on top of this. So once again, organizationally defined, they say this is the base framework, but these are our requirements that sits on top of that. And those requirements are super specific.
Yeah, then you end up with somebody like PBO on the DoD side. You said voluntary?
Yeah, so everybody
you get the book thrown.
I be feeling like they be disrespecting my 853. I'm taking ownership. But once again, I think HITRUST is doing some great things. I think, and I do IRS Pub 1075 like you do on HITRUST. A lot of times when I come in, I'm like, that's a base. I love it. I think I can cross map it to the 853. I think I can cross that to HIPAA and HITRUST. They have everything from shredding. So the way you talk about HITRUST, the same way I talk about IRS Pub 1075. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then also as Sierra mentions the MTV tonight. So just a heads up, Jerry won't be on there tonight. So I think it's like episode 3 or episode 4 or something is the first time he actually comes up on screen.
What is it?
So basically, long story short, like sometime last year, Jerry went out to Las Vegas and he recorded an entire movie series around like cybersecurity or something like that. And then he also stepped on with like some MTV like cut scenes or whatever. And that's what that has to do with is that's some like new TV series. They have like season 1 or whatever. And Jerry, shows up in it a few times. PBO's next. You got to get on it. You would be a perfect fit for MTV.
No, PBO. PBO barely even else. But I'm not going to let anybody disrespect 853. I'm coming up.
Yeah. Day in the life of a DOD assessor. PBO walking in with his clipboard with the whole 53 printed out.
Yeah, man, I will not take any disrespect to 853. PBO will come on stage ASAP.
But and like we've said before too, is that like the 53 is like the godfather of it all because it maps to everything. You can map that to everything. But
I think it's a little dated though. I'm gonna jump in real quick. I think 53 is getting a little dated. I do have to I guess submit to that. I don't know what the proper verbiage is. It is getting a little dated, and it is heavy. And if you talking about throwing sticks for for hardening, I hear a lot of people back out about that. But I always say it's this big boy security. Put on your big boy pants and let's go. But it is, I would say it's getting a little long in the tooth, and I think that's why CSF is coming out. I think HITRUST, because they're making it more nimble. A lot of stuff like the FIPS encryption that costs $100,000 and it takes a year. And even AWS was like, dude, this takes too long and it's too outdated. So there's a lot of things I think 53 needs to get with the times and get a little more nimble.
Yeah, no, I think that's accurate because it seems like the CSF is just getting more and more popular. It's because it's so extensive on the 53 and nobody wants to deal with it.
But my thing is, I say this all the time, is we can't get more secure by doing less and less checks. I fully believe that. So, I mean,
that sounds like job security for you, PBO.
It is, because I know it inside and out, but I truly believe that. And nobody has, and I've taught, you say me, my CMMC guy, he actually admitted that.
How bad is the low baselines?
I don't do low.
He was like, I've never even looked.
He's
like low baselines. I only know of like moderate and high.
If you paying PBO rates, it can't be low. That's all I'm saying. You paying PBO low, you can't.
I'm gonna pull this up and double check because I don't even remember.
Facts, Face Tacos. They're gonna need to give me a ribbon on the show if I go on there, because I'm punching everybody in the throat.
A ribbon? Yeah, no, I think that's called a bond.
No, your banner at the bottom. Oh, no. PBO got low your on speed dial. He good in that area. PBO got low your on speed dial. He got a retainer to help him. So now PBO got that covered. Shout out to me.
Yeah, so this is the 53R5 Trello board that we went through and did. And so I was just curious. So if I come over here and select low, there's 149 controls for the low baseline. That's more than the CSF combined all together. The CSF has 106 controls.
So how you gonna tell me you're more secure when I got way more check? And you at low. We ain't even went to the big dog yet. We ain't even went to medium.
But PBO, we talk about it all the time on the fact that most orgs aren't even following best practices.
Oh, facts. That's why we need to get there. We need to stop playing and get our big boy pants on. Let's do this for real.
Are you trying to push the 53 nationwide as a requirement?
It's already pushed. If you're doing IRS, you're doing sieges, and you're doing, I think that's a lot of big agencies are doing it because, I'm about to sound elitist, they take security serious. So the big dogs are already doing it. I don't know what these, I'm CSF people, I'm attacking people. I don't know what they doing. We about security over here. Welcome to the PBO. I'm taking over now. I'm just playing.
Yeah, I was gonna say this HITRUST video just went straight 53.
Facts.
I'm gonna drop the link for this Trello board too with the low baseline. Yeah, sure. So to run it too.
So that's my thing is I think, and two, that's the plus. It's long in the tooth, but it's been out a long time. A lot of people been using it. It's been run through the ringer. You got all the big consulting firms charging too much money for it, but they're implementing it at a high level. But like you said, you did the money sign. It's gonna cost you, but security ain't cheap.
Yeah, and I just dropped it in chat too, Space Tacos. But yeah, the shout out to me, PBO inspired T-shirt. Yeah, that's all based on Rania. So she has permissions for it. Facts. I just haven't put the time into designing, but Rania has the access.
Facts.
To do it.
Rania. R². But no, like I said, I know too, it's a heavy lift. So I do respect the CSF, HITRUST. There's a lot of great frameworks out there.
Now, do you feel that an organization that goes through and goes with CSF, for an example, should that be a stepping stone to the 53? Is that kind of what you're looking towards?
Don't take this wrong. You know that's a rhetorical question for me, right? You don't even need to ask me that question. Yeah,
Hey, I'm just trying to throw the information out there.
for me it is because I'm trying to get to the and let's we know money's not infinite, right? We know time is not infinite. So, but to me, because I've been doing it forever, 853 moderate is a very secure baseline, especially if you throw the CIS benchmarks on it or the STIGs, and those have been scanned. But let's not be mistaken. That's going to take care of by 80 to 90% of your hackers. Those top 10% are doing some novel stuff, right? You're going to have to make sure you're doing some extra stuff. But and you know this too. We can't do the basic shit in security. We ain't even doing the basic stuff. So for me to go from basic, I know from basic to 53, that's a huge lift. So CSF benchmark, CIS, I think they're level 1 with the Python procedure. I think there's a lot of frameworks that could be or should be a stepping stone to 800-53.
I see. Wow. Okay. Wow.
No, Josh.
Julio's really out here just attacking people. He's like, no, that ain't good enough.
Like I tell people, I choose violence. I choose violence. No, Josh, you're correct. I don't find them. They're not mutually exclusive. But once again, I believe money and time is not infinite. So you need to pick one and go with it. So that would be my only pushback on that. Now, and the two, I work with big companies. We done 800-53, IRS PubSyn 75, DISA STIGs, and HITRUST, because we had a client that was doing some healthcare. So I've done 4 or 5 of them at the same level. So no, they're definitely not mutually exclusive. And 2 is, if you got a access control policy, that's gonna map to most all of them, right? You might need to add some stuff in there so it across. So, and I think Chris brought that up with HITRUST. When you do password complexity, right, you just got to pick the most stringent one, and the other ones will check the box, right? So I don't want to say they're not mutually exclusive. My thing is a lot of times is you can't be good at everything. Pick one.
Just do something.
Do something. I don't know. We've been doing something. It ain't working out. I think we need a little more something. I think we at least need to pick a framework. Be that CSF, CIS, HITRUST.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest issue is the fact that like so many companies don't have anything at all.
Nothing.
So
yeah. So I think that's the big step. And I know I give 800 is kind of my hammer, but I think all of those frameworks do add a certain level of volume. Chris was just up here disrespecting 800, so I had to show up. But now those, especially if you're a smaller company, you're getting your feet wet. And everybody's trying to go to the cloud. So what does that look like? So I think those other frameworks do add value. I don't want to say they're garbage. They don't add any value. And 2 is we talk about this too. What's the maturity level of your company too, right? So.
Well, I mean, I think the 53 could become more popular and so forth if there was content out there for it. But how's your course coming along?
I need to get on that. No, because you can tell it's not popular because, let me say this correctly. Babies are crying and whining. That's why they came out with CMMC. 853 STIG's been doing DOD work for 20 years. Very well, but it was a heavy lift. And they didn't want to do it.
That's the key thing.
They cried.
Yeah.
I was going to say daddy government. That might be too much. They cried. So they went to CMC, which is 40% of the checks of 800 and STIGs. It's probably 40%. Bring up the Trello board. I'm giving you access.
Yeah, it's less than that.
Yeah, so how you more secure? You know,
so for an example, like CMMC level 1 is a self-attestment or whatever the hell, and nonetheless, it's like less than 16 controls. I think level 2 is where it bumps up, which is 110 controls, if I'm not mistaken. They have the control viewer on GRC Academy too. Yeah, it's nowhere near the 53. It's a fraction. It's like under 25%, if that.
See, I'm gonna write a sternly worded letter to CISA. and asking them what's going on.
Oh yeah, I think nowadays they're really going to be able to do anything about that.
No, I said.
So I'll drop the link to this as well.
Go ahead. I was retracted when I said it. Go ahead.
Yeah, GRC Academy here has a really good control explorer, and you can go through and select the level. So CMMC has 3 different levels that build on top of each other. So level 1 has 15, level 2 has 110, and then level 3 has an additional 24. So yeah, 110 controls for level 2, which go to the 171, and that maps to the 53. So
I'm just shaking my head, man. But we picked that over the fit. Come on, man. Come on.
Yeah. Hey, you're not wrong.
But like like I said, I do understand it. It's a heavy lift, and the smaller companies were getting buried in 53. They had no choice. They had no chance of making it. So I do understand why they did it. I just don't like it. But yeah, they didn't call PBO to ask him. But once again, I think they add value. I think they picked CMC to make the tent bigger. 2 is people 853 is voluntary, but FSMA is not. But once again, I understand they're trying to bring more people in the tent, trying to make it easier for the smaller companies to get their security up. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's really where the CMMC portion comes in, is the fact that, like you said, it's too much of a heavy lift on the 53, and like the CMMC is supposed to be, the bare minimum baseline practices that they have to have. But then also with the CMMC, at least with level 2 and above, then you also have that third-party requirement as well. I don't feel that was a requirement whatsoever with the 53. They just signed the contract and said, oh yeah, we have 53.
That's not true. Once again, I did IRS. Booz Allen comes on site every 3 years. You got to take it to the agency. They come on site every 3 years.
But now, if you're a contractor for the federal government, was that still a requirement?
Yeah. The reason why is at a certain level, because long story short, when I was at the state, we got to do a risk assessment. So when they come on site, they might pick some of our third party to make sure we did a risk assessment. And they did. They checked our check print vendor and another vendor. So they could be in scope.
But so the math just doesn't math, though. Because then if they were already being assessed on a regular basis anyways from a third party, then why would they have a problem with going to a less restrictive framework?
Well, let me we're specifically talking about CMC. I'm talking about the IRS. You talking about DOD?
Yeah, so like CMMC is just the bare minimum requirements, and it's forced upon the contractors. And so like in what you were saying is that it's literally that, on the fact that they did CMMC because nobody wanted to take on the 53. So, but that's one of my key things, is that at least CMMC has that forced requirement where a third party comes in and has to do that assessment to make sure you're following those.
Yeah, parts of DOD that wasn't reporting to once again another federal agency, a lot of that was volunteering. Or the other part of that is people just sucked at it. They said they were doing a risk assessment, but they weren't doing it. Because once again, at the state, everybody know I work for the state. I flew out to some of our vendors, and half the shit they said they were doing, they were lying. I was like, dude, where's the checkbox? Where's your system security plan? Where's your BIA? This is all the stuff you check. Well, we didn't understand it. You could have asked. So I think a lot of people were skating like that. So I think,
and Rania, I think you're already voted in for the merch shop thing. You could do whatever you want, whatever the community requests. You have access. Have fun. Have at it. Less I have to do.
So now,
make PBO t-shirts, whatever mottos.
But no, I think you're right.
Don't use trademark stuff.
Yeah, facts. But I think you're right. Only certain agencies had a requirement for that. I think part of DOD did not. So I think you're correct. That's where the CMC. But my thing is, you could have put it in the 53. You could have easily said, because FedRAMP. We talked about FedRAMP. It's got a whole list of 3PL. My man in the house, Dave B. We could have get him and his company. We could have just said, "Now, okay, now you got to do a third-party audit for it." We didn't have to change anything because
just kept the 53 and made it a requirement.
FedRAMP's already doing it for the cloud. They got the whole 3PO list. We could, those same 3POs want the money. They would have went on site and did those. The cool thing now is most of that's in the cloud. So if you send you FedRAMP, you got to do those assessments for at least for the cloud portion of it.
Can't argue with that. Well, and then also like going over these HITRUST documents as well. All of this stuff is documented through in NIST publications as well. They talk about sampling, they talk about testing approaches, they talk about all of this different stuff as well. It's just across different publications and it's voluntary. So yeah. Now with the 53, for an example, you don't have to follow the 830 for risk assessments, do you?
Once again, it depends on the agency. For the IRS, you do. They telling you this is what we want you to do. Because remember, once again, it's a base configuration. So if you look up IRS, they telling you, yeah, we want all of this, right? So, but if you look at CJIS and FBI, they're a little light. I'm like, dude, y'all FBI, man, what are y'all doing? They're a little light compared to the IRS. So once again, it's agency defined for that level.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Shout out that's the new shirt right there, David B. PBO saying if it ain't 53, it ain't for me. That's fun.
Oh, I see.
I might get that. I like to. If it ain't 53, it ain't for me. But now, once again, though, I want to give a shout out. There's a lot of great frameworks out there. I'm super passionate about 853 because I've been doing it forever. But once again, I do respect it's long in the tooth and it's a heavy lift and it's not for the weary, as my mama would say. That's not for the weary. So,
well, yeah, no, yeah, definitely. I think, I mean, the big thing comes down to money. Like, that's
facts.
That's why orgs aren't doing this stuff. So, or a large majority of them aren't. Like, HITRUST, for an example, a little mom and pop shop ain't looking at HITRUST. Like,
the cool thing is, and I think we need to start doing more videos in the cloud, man. You can spin up some stuff easily that's 53 and HITRUST ready.
Come on, PBO. We need FedRAMP compliant, thin clients.
We talked about it. You get your thin client, you get your VDI, your virtual desktop interface, you get your VPC, you get your FIPS endpoints. A lot of that stuff's out the box for it. Especially AWS and Azure, because they eat that for so you can easily
throw my entire workstation in the cloud and FedRAMP and compliant, VM or whatever the hell, and then I could just, when I get a questionnaire, I could just check all the boxes. I'm good to go.
Facts. Not all, but you're being a lot of. But so I think the emergence of the cloud is making it a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that on Tuesday on your channel.
Yeah.
A lot of these moving to thin client or into the cloud and how much more popular it's going to become. So, I mean, it really does make logical sense.
Oh yeah. So I think
when they already supply that FedRAMP or FSMA or whatever you need. So
a couple clicks and you there. So I think that's making it a lot easier in the future. But
so is that I guess that would be the equivalent of easy button.
Yeah, it's getting there. Because if you look, AWS has a landing zone, and they have different types of landing zone. You click the button, it'll spin up VPC, multiple subnets, web, S3, all encrypted. So a lot of that's pre-set up for you because they want you to use it. So they're making it a lot easier for you to set that up.
One of the other things I was going to mention here too, regarding the HITRUST section. So this fourth video out of 5 for this webinar went over this chapter 11. Wow, that's way off. And another particular interesting area is this sampling section. There's a lot of different nuances in here as well. You could use multiple different types of sampling. You just have to define that. And they do have a criteria requirement as well. which I think they have a fancy little thing here as an example too. So
yeah, I guess for me, I've never did a lot of sampling because the IRS and them, they tell you specifically what they want to see, right? We want to see this screenshot. These are the policies. They need to be digitally signed with a token, and we want a date on it. So they kind of tell you specifically what they're
I don't know. I'm not 100% sure exactly which section of the sampling is in it is in here. But one of the things that they did mention during the webinar as well is the fact that when you do evidence collection, you can't, it's not something where they could just send you the screenshot or whatever the hell. It has to be during the walkthrough or otherwise. Like you have to have firsthand knowledge of such. That was like one of the interesting nuances with it too. You can't just rely on whatever is given. There was like a additional requirement there.
Yeah, I think that's a high trust because I know in IRS, we let people send us screenshots all the time. If something comes out looking funny, then I hate this word, then they have you digitally escort them, right? Meaning basically you share the screen and I watch you log into it, then watch you take the screenshot. But they know this when Boozana come in, they doing 4 agencies in 2 days. They coming in with 20 people. They want that stuff the night before, man. So a lot of times,
20 people and $150,000 later.
Facts. So so I think for them that's nuanced. Now I've been doing stuff where I feel like they were lying to me. So then I would ask, I need to have you digitally escorted. I need you to log in the screen while watching, but most of the times, unless it's something I think is high priority or something I feel a little leery about, I see people take screenshots, not firsthand screenshots. So.
Yeah, and that makes sense too. I think that's one of the other interesting things with this HITRUST in particular is they have all these different requirements, and then it goes through that vetting process. And you actually have to document some of that information as well within the CSF, the MyCSF platform that you have to submit through.
I'll tell you what.
I'm sorry?
No, I'll tell you what we talked about. It kind of surprised me. NIST 800A, because they were doing all their sampling and stuff for their testing. I thought they were super detailed. I haven't really looked at A that closely, to be honest.
The media sanitation?
No, NIST 853. Remember, there's a 53. There's an A and B. They split the document. Oh. Yeah, A had the testing in it.
Yeah, and I think it's 853A that I find most interesting because it breaks down every single thing in detail.
That's the one I was just talking about. I was surprised. Yeah. I haven't even looked at it. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, if you guys really want a really good read, throw that through a screen reader before you go to bed. 53A, that's a good read.
Yeah. IRS is just so prescriptive that I've never really dug into A until we talked about it. I was like, oh my god, they go into super detail. If I need it, I know where to get it from now. If I need testing for a certain
what PBO needs to do is submit some comments for 53.
I thought about it.
You should. But yeah, so I dropped these different links for this as well. I do like the fact I do throw in a bunch of different graphics. What I found to be best is to actually have the webinar up on one side. I do split screen with the tabs, and then I go through following the sections that they're discussing, which is pretty useful. They break it down quite a bit. And then also, so next Thursday at 11, we'll have the review process to discuss the last video itself as well. But yeah, so, and then we'll probably do a recap. I was thinking about throwing it all into one video for a complete recap. So the last video, so the one for next week is going to be this reporting and maintaining a HITRUST certification. Hey, PBO, this is only like a year and a half old. It's better than NIST.
I was gonna say compared to NIST, that's almost yesterday.
But now they have a little AI button here too. I didn't even notice that. Ask Vimeo AI.
Wow.
Let's learn what this does live. Analyzing this video for key insights. Interesting. But yeah, we'll probably start bringing this to an end here. I'm going to go have lunch here in a moment. But I do hope to see you guys later tonight. So 6 p.m. We have that presentation coming up. And then open stage, open discussion. I think the presentation should be relatively quick. But it is a really interesting one. So like you guys can see in the title as well, GRC engineering as a solo operator. So this individual really was on the blue teaming side and then kind of got thrown into the GRC aspect. ISSO internal consultant is their existing title. So it's going to be a pretty interesting insight. I mean, that's what I like about PBO's content so much is he has all of this experience from other areas as well, which gives him a different perspective.
Yes, sometimes I lump blue team and GRC together, and that is not correct.
I was going to ask you, PBO, which I might as well do live here, is you mentioned a programming language that you learned like way back in the day or you got a cert for. I think it was like COBOL, I think is what it was called.
No, I used to be an Oracle DBA. Oracle had a lot of certifications from DBA, and part of that was programming in PL SQL.
Okay. Yeah, I was watching a video of like the top 20 in-demand programming languages, and one of them was like this old programming language. I think it was COBOL or something along. Yeah, it's like one of the highest paid programming languages right now, but there's not many jobs for it.
And most of those dudes are dead.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is that there's like some really high-paying jobs if you know that language, but it's not very many positions.
No. If you go to insurance, old times insurance companies, they have a ton of COBOL because nothing can beat the speed of a mainframe. Even in today, nothing can beat the speed of. I think AWS, man, Azure talking about maybe running mainframes.
What part can you not see there?
What?
Oh, maybe when I was going through this this section here, I didn't swap the screen over. Yeah, I was just showcasing that the sampling methodology here, and they have these graphics and so forth. I think this is the section I didn't swap to, but otherwise I was just showing this section here.
Yeah, Josh, you see, that was my first summer job for the state of Indiana, doing COBOL in 1988. So that was my first summer job. I was doing some doing some working stores, just doing some printout stuff. And then they had a tape machine because there wasn't a lot of disk space. They made summer interns put the tape on the tape machine to get the data out for the test. But no, it's
I heard a story before about some guy who worked for the FBI, and he had retired, but then they ended up hiring him back because nobody could work the machines. So they literally had a tape machine for backups, and they hired this guy on, just to handle that. Like he was still collecting a paycheck and everything.
Most people what a tape is. Most people don't know what I showed on my screen, but when I first came out 3 years ago, one dude thought it was a refrigerator. I mean, they were big. They were the size of a refrigerator. But no, shout out to Dennis.
Oh my gosh, Rania. Yeah, that's what I saw, is that there are some jobs that require it, that are looking for people who know it, but it's very, very few. Like there's probably only a few dozen positions like that or something nowadays, maybe.
That's a little more. For COBOL, it's a little more, but it's not a ton.
But they do pay well because nobody knows it.
Super well. And shout out to David B. Yeah, segmentation is the key. Like Chris said, VDI and VPCs are in there. So that's definitely, especially from the cloud perspective.
But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in and so forth. And catch you guys later tonight for our primary meeting at 6 p.m. And then we'll also have our AMA tomorrow at 11. And you guys have a great rest of your day. GRC Mafia.